Hey guys. Today's spicy video may change the way you think about PvE. It dawned on me that I know a lot about this game. One thing in particular is the use of Espers and how they can greatly change the way you take on difficult PvE content. Recently, we had some difficult content, the Burst Core quest. I showed off a little bit of how powerful Espers can be, especially if you can summon them very fast. Apparently, what I thought was common knowledge on invocation boost isn't actually well known. So in this video, I will demonstrate and cover some basic need-to-know information. First of all, from a basic level, it can take up to 12 attacks on a forward-facing enemy to fully fill the gauge. Side attacks and back attacks do increase that variable, but that can be difficult to control. So the only way I can think of on how to increase how much invocation you get per attack is by utilizing Luel and Queen Mockery. The only other unit that could possibly do something similar is Terra, but she is a limited unit. With Luel using her abilities, she can buff allies around her that will grant an invocation gauge boost for attacking. As far as I am aware, there is no other ability that will grant this buff to units. It's a little hard to grasp what or how much this will fill up the Esper gauge. Even looking at Wotv calc, it still seems difficult to understand. But before we go on and test it in the field, I want to show off Queen Mockery. She does have an attack that further improves how much Esper gauge you fill up. This attack is called Evocative Vestige. What it says is that it fills up a portion. Looking at calc, you can get a number associated with the attack, but what does it all mean? To be honest, I have no clue, but when in doubt, test it out. So that is what I will demonstrate. First I will use Luel to buff herself in Mont. My first example, I will not buff Mockery just so we can get an idea of how much she can do on her own. This demonstration will be against Bahamut because of how much element resistance is stacked on the Esper. So first I will have Mockery use her attack without any buffs. As you can see from that one attack, it is more than just a normal attack boost. But now it's Luel's turn to buff herself in Mont. To optimize this in a real scenario, it is best to have Luel go first or last in a team formation. Now let's see how much gauge gets filled after Mont attacks. It looks like just a little less than halfway for 2 attacks. Just to give you an idea of what Bahamut resistances look like before I summon an Esper. Just to let everyone know that you can stack an Esper's map effect with an element debuff from a unit. So I will demonstrate this with Luel after the Earth Esper is summoned. This should be the last attack needed to fill the gauge. Meaning with just Luel you can do this strategy with just about any element team so long as you include her. There are other ways to increase invocation gauge with equipment, and believe it or not, a vision card. I hope that people will consider this strategy for the difficult content to come. Especially for Legendary Reliquary quest. As you can see, Bahamut is now negative for Earth resistance. Luel has an ability that will lower Earth resistance. It doesn't do any damage, but it's just a way to prove you can do it. Now, Bahamut is negative 48%. Just a little bonus information about how to take advantage of Esper map effects. Now it's time to try this with Luel going first and buffing Mockery to see how much the gauge will fill up with a single attack. Also, as a side note, you can further increase your damage if you add VCs and equipment with Element Attack Up. The All Element Attack Up also helps push damage if you have the cards for it. Time to see how high the gauge will fill up. So a single attack gets just about halfway. I wish the game had a dummy or a target that you could spawn in with specific stats that you could set. I bet I could come up with some great strategies. I can only assume that a lot of people overlook Luel, but to put into combination with Mockery. I don't know if players even consider it. There it is, 1 support action followed by 4 attack actions. But wait, there's more. People are probably wondering, where the equipment and vision card that were mentioned earlier. Don't worry, I did test everything that I could, so y'all don't have to. The thing is, the gear is only granting 30 for the invocation. That's 30 additional points per attack. If you ask me, that sounds pretty low considering that calc shows that Luel's buff grants 100 for 3 turns. Not to mention that the equipment with invocation is very limited. However, there is one old vision card that gives invocation. The only problem is that it's only 30. There's only one way to know if this makes any difference. When in doubt, test it out. It seems like the gauge is a bit higher from 1 attack. But is it still 4 attack turns total? I wish there was an actual summoner job that could instant summon an Esper. But I guess Luel will have to do for now. The other downside is that only Earth teams can take full advantage of a mono-element team with Luel. So it seems that it is still 4 turns, but I didn't have to use Mockery 2 times to get the extra gauge boost. In theory, you could have someone use Quicken on Mockery so that it only takes 2 attacks to get full Esper gauge. Now it's time to see just how high I can get invocation from a single attack by hitting someone from behind. If you don't want to follow down the element path, you could always use Carbuncle and cast Reflect on your team. Good thing Skahal has Courage by default. I wish I could see some sort of numerical value on the Esper gauge. Or just some information on how the value actually works in this game. That's actually a lot of gauge filled up. I'm not sure how practical that actually is. Attacking from behind can be difficult to get into that situation. Here's hoping this information is of some value for people struggling with high-end content. Please spread the word around to guilds or friends. Thanks for watching.